I landed in Miami without warning and found my daughter unconscious in the trauma ward with a shattered spine. Her husband was at a luxury resort in the Keys with his mistress, so I erased him from existence. By morning, he was begging on his knees. My name is Marcus Holloway. I am 67 years old, and I spent 40 years on Wall Street, turning failing companies into dust. I thought I had retired from destroying lives. But that night, standing in a hospital hallway that smelled like bleach and broken dreams, I realized the predator inside me had only been sleeping. Before I tell you how I dismantled a man in 12 hours, please like and subscribe to this channel, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know how far this story of justice travels. The doors of Jackson Memorial Hospital slid open with a mechanical hiss that sounded like a warning. I did not stop at the information desk. I did not ask for directions. My security team had already sent me the room number. I walked with the heavy, deliberate steps of a man who knows that time is his enemy. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. The smell of antiseptic burned my nostrils. Room 714. That number had been seared into my brain during the entire flight from Boston. I pushed the door open, and my heart, a muscle I thought had turned to granite after decades of hostile takeovers, shattered into 1,000 pieces. There she was, Rachel, my only daughter, the only thing in this world that mattered to me since her mother passed away 15 years ago. She looked so fragile in that bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hissed like mechanical vultures waiting for their meal. Her face was swollen, purple and yellow bruises spreading across her cheekbones like a grotesque watercolor. Her neck was immobilized in a thick brace. Tubes ran from her arms, her nose, her chest. The ventilator forced air into her lungs with a rhythmic whoosh that sounded like the tide going out. But it was not the injuries that made my blood freeze. It was the emptiness of the room. The chair beside her bed was pushed against the wall, cold and unused. There were no flowers on the windowsill. There was no jacket draped over a chair. There was no half-eaten sandwich from a husband who refused to leave her side. There was no sign that anyone had been there to hold her hand while she fought for her life. My daughter was dying, and she was dying alone. A nurse walked in behind me, a tired woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a clipboard. She stopped when she saw me standing there, a man in a tailored overcoat gripping the foot of the bed like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Are you family?" she asked softly. "I am her father," I said, my voice sounding like gravel scraping against concrete. "Where is her husband? Where is Connor?" The nurse hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. In my line of work, silence is an answer. It usually means someone is hiding something ugly. She looked at the empty chair, then back at me, and I saw pity in her eyes. Pity for Rachel. Pity for me. "Mr. Davenport left about 6 hours ago," she said carefully, choosing her words like she was walking through a minefield. "He said the stress was too much. He said he needed to get away to clear his head. He told us he was going to a meditation retreat to pray for her recovery." A meditation retreat. The words hung in the air like a bad joke. I looked at my daughter, tubes running in and out of her broken body. 3 years ago, I had walked her down the aisle and handed her to Connor Davenport. I had given them a wedding gift that most people would consider a fortune, $2 million. I bought them a penthouse in Brickell because I wanted my daughter to be safe. I wanted her to have a husband who would protect her, cherish her, and sit in a damn uncomfortable hospital chair when she was hurt. I thought I was buying her security. Instead, it seems I just financed a lifestyle for a parasite. "He went to meditate," I repeated, my tone devoid of any belief. "Yes, sir," the nurse said, though she did not look convinced either. "He seemed very upset. He said he was going to the Everglades, to some spiritual center." I nodded slowly. I did not raise my voice. I did not frighten the nurse. It was not her fault. I simply pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now. The shock had passed, replaced by a cold, surgical focus. I knew Connor. I knew the man who spent more time at the gym than he did at his job. I knew the man who always ordered the most expensive bottle at dinner without knowing how to pronounce the vineyard. Connor did not meditate. Connor did not have a spiritual bone in his body unless you counted his devotion to his own reflection. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I watched my daughter's chest rise and fall, driven by a machine, while I waited for the man who promised to love her in sickness and in health to answer his phone. "Dad," Connor's voice came through the speaker, a theatrical whisper designed to sound like a man overcome with grief. "I am so glad you called. I could not stay there, Dad. It was killing me to see her like that." "Connor," I said, keeping my voice level, "I am at the hospital. The room is empty. Where are you?" "Oh, Dad," he sighed, a sound that was supposed to mimic exhaustion. "I am at this wellness center in the Glades. I needed to reconnect with my inner peace so I could be strong for Rachel. I just could not handle the machines, you know? The beeping. It was destroying my soul. I am doing chakra work right now, healing energy for her. It was a good performance, almost convincing, except for one thing. Connor was careless. He had not muted his surroundings properly. In the background, beneath his fake spiritual crisis, I heard something. It was not the silence of a meditation retreat. It was not the chirping of birds or the gentle sound of nature. It was a rhythmic thumping, a heavy bass beat, and then the distinct sound of a woman laughing, high and carefree, followed by the splash of water. "You are at a wellness center?" I asked, my eyes narrowing as I watched the heart monitor tracking my daughter's struggle. "Yes, Dad," Connor lied, the bass in the background getting louder for a second, as if a door had opened. "Very peaceful here. I am visualizing her recovery right now. Please tell me there is good news from the doctors." "There is news, Connor," I said, my voice dropping to a register that used to make CEOs sweat in boardrooms. "Stay there. Keep meditating. I will handle everything here." I hung up before he could say another word. I stood in the silence of that hospital room, but my head was full of noise. I looked at my daughter one last time. I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Her skin was cold, like touching marble. "I promise you, Rachel," I whispered. "He will pay for this." I walked out of the room and signaled to the head of my security detail, a former FBI agent named Garrison who had been with me for 15 years. "Track him," I ordered. "We already have, sir," he replied, handing me a tablet. "His phone is not pinging anywhere near the Everglades. He is in Key West." I looked at the map. The blinking blue dot was stationary at a resort, the Sunset Harbor Club. "He is at a resort," Garrison confirmed. "The presidential suite, booked under a corporate card from his company." He was not meditating. He was vacationing at a 5-star resort while my daughter lay with a broken spine in intensive care. The rage that filled me was not hot. It was absolute zero. It was the kind of cold that burns. I did not just want to hurt him. I wanted to erase him. I wanted to turn his existence into ashes before the sun came up. Just then, the attending physician came around the corner, looking exhausted. He spotted me and rushed over, sweat beading on his forehead. "Mr. Holloway, thank God you are here," he said breathlessly. "We need to perform emergency surgery to stabilize her spine. There is severe swelling around the spinal cord. If we do not operate within the next few hours, she could be permanently paralyzed. But we need consent from the next of kin." I frowned. Her husband, Connor. Did he not sign the forms before he left? The doctor shook his head, his face grim. "That is the problem. We called him multiple times. He said he needed to consult with his lawyer about the liability implications before authorizing any procedures. He mentioned something about malpractice concerns and wanting to review the hospital's success rates. The world stopped. It was not just neglect. It was not just a vacation. He was stalling. He was letting the clock run out. He wanted her to become a vegetable, or worse. I looked at the doctor. "Bring me the papers. I will sign everything. Do whatever you have to do to save her." As the doctor ran back to get the consent forms, I took out my phone again. But this time I did not call Connor. I called Victoria Chen, my personal attorney, a woman who had more kills in the courtroom than most soldiers have in combat. "Wake up, Victoria," I said. "We have a situation. I want Connor Davenport destroyed by sunrise. I want his accounts frozen his assets seized, and every debt he has ever taken called in immediately. I am going to Key West. By the time I arrive, I want to own the ground he is standing on. This was not going to be a simple divorce. This was going to be an execution. And Connor Davenport had no idea that the executioner was already sharpening his blade. I hung up, and the silence in that hospital corridor felt heavier than lead. Connor was meditating, doing chakra work, sending healing energy. The lies dripped from his mouth like sewage. I signed the surgical consent forms with a fountain pen that had closed deals worth billions. It was a document that said if she died on that table, I would not sue. It was a document that said I was taking full responsibility for my daughter's life. The surgeon looked at me with relief and ran toward the operating room, shouting orders to his team. I watched them wheel Rachel through the double doors. I saw the lights of the surgical theater flicker on. My job in that building was done. Now I had work to do elsewhere. I turned to Garrison. Get the jet ready. We are going to Key West. And Garrison, find out everything about this accident. Everything. The official report says she lost control of her car on I-95, Garrison said, pulling up files on his tablet. Hit the median barrier at 70 miles per hour. Car flipped 3 times. Lost control, I repeated. Rachel has been driving since she was 16. She has never had an accident. She does not speed. She does not text and drive. She is the most careful driver I have ever known. I looked at the police report on Garrison's tablet. Something felt wrong. Rachel's car, a Mercedes SUV I had bought her last year, was one of the safest vehicles on the road. It had every safety feature imaginable. Get me the vehicle, I said, whatever is left of it. I want our forensics team to examine every piece. Within an hour, I was on my private jet, heading south. The flight to Key West was 90 minutes. 90 minutes to plan, to strategize, to set the trap. I sat in the leather seat, staring out at the darkness below, thinking about the man who had married my daughter. Connor Davenport, the charming entrepreneur with the perfect smile and the empty soul. I knew what he was the moment I met him. I saw the way he looked at our home, not with appreciation, but with calculation. I saw the way he asked about my retirement plans, about my estate, about my investments. But Rachel was in love. She was glowing with happiness. She begged me not to ruin it with my suspicions. He is different, Daddy, she had said, her eyes shining with tears. He loves me for me, not for your money. Please, just be happy for me. So I relented. I let her marry him without the prenup I wanted. I gave them the penthouse. I invested in his tech startup that never seemed to produce anything but excuses. I thought if I filled his pockets enough, he would not need to empty hers. I was a fool. A rich, powerful fool. My phone buzzed. It was Victoria. Tobias, she said, her voice sharp. I have been pulling his financial records. It is worse than we thought. Tell me, I said. The penthouse you bought them. He took out a second mortgage on it 8 months ago. Borrowed $1.8 million against the property. That is impossible, I said. The deed is in both their names. He would need Rachel's signature. He forged it, Victoria said. I have a handwriting expert reviewing the documents now, but it is clear as day. The signature is a fake. He borrowed the money without her knowledge. Where did the money go? Gone, Victoria replied. I traced the transfers. He moved it all to offshore accounts, then into a series of failed cryptocurrency investments and sports betting platforms. He lost everything, every single cent. He is drowning. Marcus, the lender, has already sent a notice of default. They were going to foreclose next month. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. The accident, the delayed medical consent, the vacation while she lay dying. It was not just negligence. It was not just cowardice. It was calculated. He needed her gone. He needed her to die so he could collect whatever was left. Did he have insurance? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Victoria sighed. That is the final nail. He took out a term life policy on Rachel 6 weeks ago. $5 million with a double indemnity clause for accidental death. If she dies in a car accident, he gets $10 million tax-free. $10 million. That was the price tag he put on my daughter's life. He was going to use her blood money to pay off his gambling debts and disappear to some island with his mistress. It was so crude, so utterly devoid of humanity, that I almost admired the audacity. Almost. "Buy the debt," I ordered. "Which debt?" Victoria asked. "All of it," I said. "The mortgage on the penthouse, his car loan, his credit cards, every marker he owes to every bookie and loan shark in Florida. I want to own him. I want to be the only person on earth that Connor Davenport owes money to, and I want to call it all in tonight." "Consider it done," Victoria said. "I will have everything transferred within the hour." I hung up and looked out the window. The lights of the Florida Keys were visible now, glittering like scattered jewels against the black velvet of the ocean. Somewhere down there, Connor was sipping cocktails by a pool, celebrating what he thought was his upcoming payday. "Enjoy it, Connor," I whispered to the darkness. "Enjoy your last drink, because the hangover is going to last the rest of your life." The jet landed at Key West International just after midnight. A black SUV was waiting on the tarmac. Garrison had already sent an advance team to the Sunset Harbor Club. They had eyes on Connor. They had been watching him for the past 2 hours. I received a live feed on my tablet as we drove toward the resort. There he was. Connor Davenport, the grieving husband, the man too devastated to sit by his wife's bedside. He was lounging by the infinity pool in a white linen shirt unbuttoned to his navel, holding a glass of champagne. A woman was draped over him like an expensive accessory. She was young, blonde, wearing a bikini that cost more than most people's rent. They were laughing, clinking glasses, toasting to something. "Zoom in on her neck," I told Garrison. The image enlarged. The resolution was sharp enough to see every detail, and there, glittering against her tanned skin, was a pendant I knew well. A platinum chain with a cluster of sapphires surrounding a central diamond. It was my wife's necklace. I had given it to Catherine on our 20th anniversary. When she died, I gave it to Rachel. She wore it every day. She said it made her feel like her mother was still watching over her. And now, while Rachel lay in surgery, with her spine held together by titanium rods, that necklace was hanging around the neck of her husband's mistress. He had taken it from her. He must have removed it before the accident. Or maybe after, when she was unconscious, bleeding on the highway. He had looted her body before it was even cold and given the prize to another woman. That was the moment the last shred of mercy evaporated from my soul. I wanted him arrested, but arrest is temporary. Lawyers negotiate, judges grant bail. The system is slow. I wanted something faster. I wanted something permanent. I wanted to strip him of everything he thought he had until he was naked and shivering in the cold, just like he left my daughter on that highway. I called Victoria. "Execute the protocol," I said. "Are you certain?" she asked. "This is the nuclear option. Once we push this button, there is no going back. Look at the feed, Victoria. Look at her neck." There was silence on the line. Then I heard a sharp intake of breath. "Is that Catherine's necklace?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "It is." "Burn him," Victoria said, her voice cold as steel. "I am executing the transfers now. You will own his entire existence within 30 minutes. I hung up and watched the feed. Connor was kissing the woman now, sloppy and drunk. His phone was sitting on the table beside his champagne glass, untouched, unchecked. He had not called the hospital once. He had not asked about Rachel. He was already spending the money he thought he was going to inherit. I checked my watch. The surgery should be finishing soon. I needed to know she was alive before I moved on Connor. My phone rang. It was the hospital. "Mr. Holloway," the surgeon's voice came through, tired but relieved. "The surgery was successful. We stabilized her spine. She is in recovery now. She is going to live." The weight that lifted from my chest was indescribable. She was alive. My girl was alive. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you. Keep her safe. No one gets into that room without my authorization. No one." I hung up and looked at the tablet. Connor was ordering another bottle of champagne. He had no idea that his wife had just survived. He had no idea that his murder plot had failed. And he had no idea that the man who built a fortune on destroying corporations was about to turn that same focus on him. "Let us go," I said to my driver. "The party is over." The Sunset Harbor Club was exactly the kind of place Connor would choose. Expensive, exclusive, designed to impress people with more money than taste. The lobby was all white marble and crystal chandeliers. The staff wore uniforms that cost more than most people's cars. I walked through the entrance like I owned the place. By morning, I very well might. Garrison had already briefed the resort manager, a nervous man named Phillips, who understood immediately that cooperating with me was in his best interest. I did not threaten him. I did not need to. My reputation preceded me. He gave me a keycard to the pool area and promised to keep his security team away for the next hour. I found Connor exactly where the surveillance feed showed him. He was still by the pool, though the crowd had thinned. It was nearly 2 a.m. Most of the other guests had gone to bed. Only Connor and his mistress remained, along with a few stragglers who were too drunk to notice anything. I walked slowly across the pool deck, my footsteps silent on the wet tiles. Connor had his back to me. He was laughing at something the woman had said, his head thrown back, completely oblivious. I stopped 3 feet behind him and waited. One of the waiters noticed me and froze. He recognized the look on my face. He quietly backed away. "Hello, Connor," I said. He spun around so fast he nearly fell off his lounge chair. The champagne in his hand sloshed over the rim, splashing onto his white shirt. His face went through a rapid series of expressions. Surprise, confusion, fear. And then, because he was a natural liar, he forced his features into a mask of relief. "Dad," he exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. "Oh, thank God. How did you find me? I came here to decompress. The stress was unbearable. Please, tell me there is news about Rachel. Is she okay?" I did not answer immediately. I looked at the woman still lounging on the chair behind him. She was watching me with a mixture of curiosity and annoyance, as if I was interrupting her evening. The sapphires around her neck caught the light from the pool, sparkling like stars. "Introduce me to your friend," I said, my voice calm and cold. Connor glanced back at her, panic flickering in his eyes. "Oh, this is just a colleague from the meditation retreat. We ran into each other here. She was helping me process my emotions." "A colleague," I repeated, "at a 5-star resort, in a bikini, wearing my dead wife's necklace." The color drained from Connor's face. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time since I had known him, he had nothing to say. I took a step closer. "Rachel is alive," I said. "The surgery was successful. She is going to recover." I watched his face carefully. I expected him to look relieved. I expected him to at least pretend to be happy. Instead, for just a fraction of a second, I saw something else. Disappointment. It was there and gone in an instant, but I caught it. He was disappointed that his wife had survived. "That is wonderful," Connor said, forcing enthusiasm into his voice. "Thank God. I should fly back immediately. I need to be by her side." "No," I said. "You are not going anywhere." His fake smile faltered. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It was his banking app. Or rather, it was what used to be his banking app. Every account showed a 0 balance. Every transaction was flagged. Every card was declined. I watched his eyes widen as he scrolled through the devastation. "What is this?" he whispered. "This is a mistake. My accounts have been hacked." "You have not been hacked," I said. "You have been liquidated. 1 hour ago, I purchased the defaulted note on your penthouse. 30 minutes ago, I acquired your car loan, your credit card debt, and every personal marker you owe to every gambling operation from Miami to Vegas. You are not just broke, Connor. You are negative. You owe $6 million, and you owe it all to me." Connor's hands were shaking now. The phone nearly slipped from his fingers. "You cannot do this," he stammered. "This is illegal. This is theft." "It is not theft," I said. "It is debt collection. And as the holder of your loans, I am exercising my right to accelerate repayment. You have 24 hours to pay me $6 million, or I foreclose on everything. Your home, your car, your clothes, the watch on your wrist. It all belongs to me now." Connor looked around wildly, as if expecting someone to come save him. The woman on the lounge chair was already gathering her things, edging away from the scene. She could smell the failure on him. She knew the gravy train had derailed. "Vanessa," Connor called out, desperation cracking his voice. "Wait. Do not leave." He grabbed her arm. She shook him off with a look of disgust. "Do not touch me," she snapped. "I knew this was too good to be true. You told me you were rich. You told me you were about to come into a fortune." She laughed. A cruel, cutting sound. "You are pathetic." She ripped the necklace from her throat and threw it at his feet. "Keep your stupid jewelry. I am out of here." She grabbed her cover-up and stormed away without looking back. Connor watched her go, his mouth hanging open. His world was collapsing around him, and he could not stop it. I bent down and picked up the necklace. The sapphires were warm from her skin. I held them up to the light, watching them sparkle. "Do you know what these are?" I asked Connor. He did not answer. "These belong to my wife," I continued. "I gave them to Rachel on her wedding day. She treasured them more than anything she owned. And you stole them. You ripped them off her neck and gave them to your whore." "I did not steal them," Connor blurted out. "Rachel gave them to me. She wanted Vanessa to have them. She said." She stopped. He knew how absurd the lie sounded. I stepped closer until I was inches from his face. "I am going to tell you what is going to happen now," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You are going to walk out of this resort. You are going to get on a bus, because your car is being repossessed as we speak. You are going to go back to Miami, and you are going to turn yourself in to the police." "Turn myself in," Connor laughed, a desperate, hysterical sound. "For what? You cannot prove anything. The accident was just an accident. The investigation already concluded it was driver error." I smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You mean the accident where my daughter's car mysteriously lost its brakes on a straight stretch of highway? The accident where a vehicle with 3 redundant safety systems all failed at the exact same moment? I had my forensics team examine the wreckage, Connor. Do you know what they found?" His face went white. "They found that the brake lines had been cut," I said. "Professionally, almost expertly, but not quite expertly enough. They also found traces of a chemical compound on the lines that is commonly used to delay the corrosion. Someone wanted those brakes to fail, but not immediately. Someone wanted it to happen after the car had been driven for a while. Someone wanted it to look like mechanical failure." "That is ridiculous," Connor whispered, but his voice had no conviction. "That is insane. Why would I do that?" I pulled out my tablet and showed him the insurance policy. $5 million, Connor. 10 with the accidental death clause. That is why you would do it. You needed the money because you gambled away everything I gave you. You forged her signature on a mortgage and lost that too. You were about to be exposed as a fraud. So you decided to kill her and collect the payout. Connor was sweating now, rivulets running down his temples despite the cool night air. "You cannot prove that," he said. "You cannot prove I had anything to do with the car." "I cannot prove you personally cut the brakes," I agreed. "But I can prove motive. I can prove opportunity. I can prove that you took out a massive insurance policy 6 weeks before the accident. I can prove you forged documents and committed fraud. And most importantly, Connor, I have something else." I swiped to a video file on my tablet and pressed play. The footage was from a camera Connor did not know existed. It was the dash cam from Rachel's car, automatically uploaded to cloud storage. It showed Rachel getting into the car that morning. It showed her waving goodbye to someone off camera. And then, in the corner of the frame, reflected in the side mirror, it showed a figure crouching by the wheel well. A figure in a gray hoodie. A figure whose face was visible for just a moment when he stood up and looked around. The figure was Connor. "Rachel did not know about the dash cam," I said. "I had it installed last year for her safety. It uploads to a secure server every time the car starts. You were careful, Connor. But you were not careful enough." Connor stared at the screen. All the fight went out of him. His shoulders slumped, his knees buckled. He collapsed onto the pool deck, sitting in a puddle of spilled champagne, looking like a deflated balloon. "I did not mean for her to die," he whispered. "I just wanted her to be hurt enough to—" He stopped. "Enough to what?" I demanded. "Enough to be paralyzed, enough to need constant care. What was your plan, Connor? Hurt her just enough to get power of attorney, and then what? Drain her accounts? Commit her to an institution?" He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw the real Connor. The mask was gone. There was nothing behind his eyes but emptiness and greed. "She was going to divorce me," he said, his voice flat. "She found out about the mortgage. She found out about Vanessa. She told me she was filing papers next week. If she divorced me, I would get nothing. The prenup you wanted her to sign. She made me sign one anyway. Without telling you, if we divorced, I walked away with nothing." "So you tried to kill her?" I said. "I tried to survive," Connor snapped, a flash of his old arrogance returning. "You never gave me a chance. You never believed in me. You always looked at me like I was dirt beneath your shoes. Everything I did was never good enough for the great Marcus Holloway." I bent down until I was at his eye level. "You are right," I said. "You were never good enough. And now you never will be." I stood up and signaled to Garrison, who was waiting at the edge of the pool deck. "Call the police," I said. "Show them the video. Show them the forensics report. Show them everything." Connor scrambled to his feet. "Wait," he begged. "Wait. We can make a deal. I know things. I have information. I can tell you about other people. People who would pay to keep their secrets. I can be useful to you." I looked at him with pure contempt. "You just tried to murder my daughter," I said. "There is no deal in the world that could save you now." 2 police officers were already coming through the pool gate, alerted by resort security. They approached with hands on their holsters, taking in the scene. Connor saw them and made one last desperate move. He lunged at me, grabbing the collar of my jacket, pulling me toward him. "You owe me!" he screamed, spit flying from his lips. "I gave Rachel 3 years of my life. 3 years. And all I got was scraps from your table. You treated me like a servant. You looked down on me. This is your fault. All of it." I did not flinch. I did not pull away. I looked directly into his wild, desperate eyes. "No, Connor," I said calmly. "This is your fault. You married my daughter for money. You stole from her. You tried to kill her. And now you are going to prison. The only person you have to blame is the one you see in the mirror." The officers pulled him off me, twisting his arms behind his back. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that signaled the end of his freedom. "Connor Davenport," one of the officers said, "you are under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery, and assault. You have the right to remain silent." Connor was not silent. He screamed and cursed and threatened as they dragged him across the pool deck. He made promises of revenge. He swore he would get out on bail. He claimed he had powerful friends who would help him. But his voice got smaller and smaller as they took him away, until finally the night swallowed him up entirely. I stood alone by the pool, holding my wife's necklace in my hand. The water was still and silent, reflecting the stars above. The champagne bottles lay overturned on the ground, their contents mixing with the puddles of chlorinated water. I thought about Rachel. I thought about the doctors working to save her spine. I thought about the months of recovery ahead, the physical therapy, the pain she would endure. I thought about the grandchild I might never have because of what Connor had done to her. Then I thought about Connor, sitting in the back of a police car, realizing that his life was over. The money was gone. The mistress was gone. The resort, the champagne, the lies, all gone. He would spend the rest of his years in a cell, thinking about how close he had come to getting away with it. It was not enough. No punishment would ever be enough for what he had done. But it was justice. Cold, hard, financial justice. The only kind I knew how to deliver. My phone buzzed. It was the hospital. "Mr. Holloway," the nurse said, "your daughter is awake. She is asking for you." I took a deep breath. I put the necklace in my pocket. I walked away from the pool, away from the scene of Connor's destruction, and headed back to the airport. My daughter needed me, and unlike her husband, I would actually be there. The flight back to Miami was the longest 90 minutes of my life. I sat in the darkness of the cabin, watching the lights of the Keys disappear below, thinking about everything that had happened. By now, the police would be processing Connor. By now, Victoria would be filing the paperwork to foreclose on every asset he had ever touched. By now, the news would be starting to spread. The charming entrepreneur, the perfect husband, revealed as a fraud and an attempted murderer. When I walked into Rachel's hospital room, the first thing I saw was her eyes. They were open, clear, and full of tears. She looked so small in that bed, so fragile, but she was alive. She was alive. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice hoarse from the tubes they had removed. Her hand reached out toward me. I took it and held it tight. "I am here," I said. "I am here, sweetheart, and I am never leaving." She tried to smile, but it turned into a sob. "I know," she said. "I know about Connor. The police were here. They told me about the breaks." She squeezed my hand. "I should have listened to you. You tried to warn me." I brushed the hair from her forehead, just like I did when she was a little girl with nightmares. "We do not look back," I said. "We only look forward. He is gone now. He is never going to hurt you again." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "There is something I have to tell you," she said. "Something he did not know. Something nobody knew." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What is it?" Rachel closed her eyes. "I was going to tell him the night before the accident. That is why I confronted him about the money, about the woman. I wanted everything out in the open before I told him my news." She opened her eyes and looked at me. "I am pregnant, Daddy. 8 weeks. I just found out." The room tilted. I gripped the bed rail to steady myself. The implications crashed over me like a wave. Connor had tried to kill not just my daughter, but my grandchild. He had sabotaged that car, knowing that she was carrying his own child. "Does he know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shook her head. "I never got the chance to tell him. After I confronted him about the forgery, he stormed out. The next morning, I got in the car." She paused, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. "The doctors say the baby is okay. They monitored everything during the surgery. Strong heartbeat. No trauma to the uterus." I sat down heavily in the chair beside her bed, the same chair that had been empty when I arrived, the chair that should have held her husband. I bowed my head, and for the first time in 15 years, since my wife died, I cried. "He killed his own child," I said. "He tried to kill his own child without even knowing it." Rachel reached over and touched my face. "He does not deserve to know," she said. "He does not deserve to know about the baby. As far as he is concerned, he killed his legacy. Let him believe that. Let him spend the rest of his life thinking he murdered his only chance at being a father." I looked at my daughter, at the steel in her eyes, at the strength that had survived 3 years with a monster. She was not the naive girl I had walked down the aisle. She was a survivor. She was a warrior. "You are just like your mother," I said. She smiled through her tears. "I know." Connor Davenport was convicted 8 months later on charges of attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery, and assault. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The dashcam footage was played for the jury. The forensics expert testified about the cut brake lines. The insurance investigator detailed the suspicious policy. Victoria made sure every piece of evidence was presented in the most damaging light possible. Connor tried to claim insanity. He tried to claim emotional distress. He tried to blame me, saying I had driven him to desperation with my controlling behavior. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and came back with a guilty verdict on all counts. He was sentenced to 45 years without the possibility of parole. He will be 93 years old before he is eligible for release. He will die in that cell, alone and forgotten, just like he left my daughter on that highway. The penthouse in Brickell was sold at auction. I bought it myself, just so I could donate it to a women's shelter for survivors of domestic abuse. The car, the clothes, the watches, everything Connor had ever owned was liquidated, and the proceeds went to charity. Every trace of his existence was erased. Rachel recovered. It took 6 months of physical therapy, but she learned to walk again. The doctors said she was a miracle. I said she was her mother's daughter. And 5 months ago, my grandson was born. We named him Thomas, after my father. He has Rachel's eyes and Catherine's smile. When I hold him in my arms, I think about everything that almost was. I think about Connor on that highway, cutting the brake lines, believing he was about to become a rich man. He had no idea he was destroying his own future. That is the cruelest irony of all. Connor killed for money he would never see. He tried to murder a woman who was carrying his son. He threw away everything that could have given his life meaning, all for a payout that evaporated the moment I made a phone call. I am 67 years old now. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But the only wealth that matters is sleeping in a crib in my daughter's apartment, gurgling at the ceiling, completely unaware of the monster who almost ended his life before it began. If you are watching this, if you suspect someone close to you is not who they claim to be, trust your instincts. Document everything. Pay attention to the details. And if they cross the line, do not wait for the system to catch up. Take action. Use whatever tools you have. Money is not just currency. It is power. It is protection. It is the weapon that can destroy those who threaten what you love. Connor thought I was just a rich old man. He thought I was slow, sentimental, easy to manipulate. He forgot how I got rich. He forgot that I spent 4 decades dismantling companies and exposing fraud. He thought he was the predator. He did not realize he had walked into the den of something far more dangerous. Do not ever come for my family. Because I do not just have money. I have patience. I have resources. And I have a memory that never fades. If you cross the line, I will not just sue you. I will erase you. I will wait until you think you are safe, until you think you have won, and then I will turn off the lights. This is Marcus Holloway, signing off. If you believe in protecting family at all costs, hit that subscribe button and share this story. Let it be a warning to anyone who thinks they can hurt the people we love and get away with it. Stay vigilant, stay strong, and never sign anything without reading the fine print.